The value of the dollar has dropped significantly, which is in part fueling the big growth in silver and gold prices. In fact, loads of commodities are increasing in value this week. It's an exciting time to see silver grow, no doubt about that, but it is important to remember the reasons why we stack silver in the first place. So this video is going to be an examination of the relationship between the value of dollars and commodities, but more specifically, silver. Everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for this week's Precious Metal Rambling, which is going to be, of course, about the rising gold and silver prices that we've seen over this last couple of days. It's been a very good week for commodities all over the world, not just gold and silver, but copper, wheat, corn, oil. Loads of commodities have gone up quite significantly, and the big question on everybody's mind is how high can gold and silver go? Is this the start of the breakout? Are we going to see $30 an ounce silver? Are we going to go higher than that? Is it going to go to the moon? Now, I don't think it's going to go to the moon by any stretch or account, but I do feel that we are in a good run at the moment on silver and gold, and that's in part down to the value of this stuff here, the dollar. Now, the dollar is the reserve currency almost of all commodities around the world. It's the commonly traded currency for a lot of commodities out there. So when the dollar weakens, as we've seen over this last couple of weeks and months, in fact over the last 6 months against the pound, the dollar has very much lost a lot of value. It used to trade at about 1.25 at its lowest, and now it's at 1.42, so about a 17% swing there in the value and buying power of the pound against the dollar. So it means that people who have pounds, people who have other currencies that are doing very much better than the dollar right now, have more buying power. They get more for their money than people with dollars do, which of course means that silver and gold are going to be popular. Copper, all the commodities out there are popular right now, and this week has seen some big gains in the copper, silver and gold markets, all commodities around the world, which is a really interesting factor to play into the link to silver and the wonders that we all love to think that is going to happen to silver. We all think, hope and pray sometimes for $100 an ounce silver, $1,000 an ounce silver. We all know that silver is undervalued. I have always said that I think silver is undervalued. I think it is a good buy. It is a fantastic metal to hedge wealth over a long period of time. But that does not necessarily mean that it is going to auto-correct to some historically low gold-silver ratio and be $1,000 an ounce or $300 an ounce. It is most certainly not going to do that, I feel. I say I feel there because nobody knows. Nobody truly knows what is going to happen. And that includes all of these big financial experts that you see out there that put very enticing thumbnails on videos and on articles saying silver will make you a millionaire. I really strongly disagree with a lot of those sentiments, and I have, and I always will, always advocate sensible investing in precious metals. It's not a stock, it's not a share, it's a very different market to buying a stock or a share, and that is something important for people to remember. Buying physical silver especially is a very different market to a stocks and a share type thing. If you're vaulting silver and gold, numbers on a screen, I personally don't believe in that. Even if it's supposedly physical backed silver, you hear a lot about various different engines out there for physical backed funds and shares. There's the PSLV as well. I am not making any disparaging accusations against those organizations about their actual physical backing, but at the same time, if I don't hold it in my hands, it's not real for me. Does that make sense to everybody? I think it makes sense to a lot of people out there. If I don't physically have it, then I don't physically own it. That's an important distinction for me, because the world that we live in, as you all know, is complete craziness, and to rely on other numbers on screens and other people and other institutions is difficult most certainly. And if there is a run and there is any sense of difficulty out there in markets, it can leave a lot of people up the brown creek without a paddle. So physically owning and holding this stuff is important to me, and that is it's a very different market to a stock or a share, and it's always important to remember why you're getting into it. And for me, it's about the value of this stuff here. Well, not specifically this stuff here, the value of this stuff, which I've buried under silver. That's a metaphor in itself, isn't it? So here is the thing that concerns me most: the fiat currency, the pounds, the pennies, the pence, the the dollars, the euros, the yen out there. All of these currencies are going to struggle over this next decade. They most certainly are. The amount of money that has been printed, the favourite phrase there, money printer go brrr. Lots of money being printed out there right now, and inflation is most certainly a concern. It is 100% the biggest concern on the markets right now, and you are seeing a flock to various precious metals, various commodities out there as a means to protect real physical things. Again, there, commodities are just real physical things. Now, a lot of the moves in the bigger marketplace are, of course, for contracts for these things. So very much like I said there about paper assets, the big players in the markets, they don't necessarily take delivery of a lot of their silver and gold and commodities, copper, coal, whatever it might be. In fact, I've got a friend who used to work in finance, and he said at one point one of his trades was to buy an entire tanker ship of coal. And he held on to it for about 12 hours before the price had gone up a tiny tick, and then they sold it and moved on to another product. So there's the macro amounts of trades that go on around the world on small and large scales for different commodities often happen just on a screen, numbers on a screen. So it's really very interesting to see this kind of movement happening in the markets for silver and gold. And of course, whenever we get stuff that's moving, like silver and gold, especially for silver, because it is, of course, the primary focus of a lot of our attention here in this community on YouTube and the greater kind of stacking investing world, we start to see, of course, lots of hypotheses about where things are going. And that has, of course, been like one of the biggest, almost bugbears, I think, for myself and a lot of other people out there, that there are just copious amounts of hypotheses coming out. And that's what they are, hypotheses about where silver's going to go, about where gold's going to go, the US debt clock. All of these are just complete guesses in the wind. They really are. If I am wrong in my aspersions that the silver price isn't going to go to $1,000 an ounce, then that is fine. I've said it so many times. I'll be the first to make a video of me eating a hat saying, yeah, I was wrong. But I don't think I am wrong. I do not think that it is very likely at all to see an absolute run on this stuff. For this here to get to $1,000 an ounce, it will mean the complete collapse of the dollar, which is not something that I can see ever happening. The gradual weakening of the dollar over time and the inflation of the dollar, yes. Protecting your wealth with silver, yes. Have silver go up to $50 an ounce within the next 10 years. Very possibly, because of the vast amount of inflation. If you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I'd have said no chance. But with all that's happened in the world with coronavirus and COVID, yeah, definitely I can see this stuff growing in value over the next 10 years, 10, 15 years, 20 years. It could very well be at $100 an ounce, but that is not the same as it shooting the moon to $100 an ounce right now. So when we see these big movements in markets like this week, and we are seeing big movements in markets right now, there are going to inevitably be lots of people out there who will jump on bandwagons, who will get into this stuff for the first time, not necessarily knowing the full context of it, because as again, with all of these things, all of these commodities that start growing in value, the people who've been there at the start for a long time, they're the ones that get to earn the most. And it's always about bias. For me, I try to take that bias away. I've held silver for 6 years now, in fact, nearly 7 years now. Late 2014, early 2015, I bought my first pieces of silver. And those pieces of silver were bought for like 10 to 15 pounds an ounce, depending on the premiums of the coins. They are worth double, maybe even some triple that right now. It is absolutely staggering how much some of that has grown. Now, for me, it's great because I have all of that silver in my stack. I've got, copious amounts of the stuff that's just ready there to be sold when I want it. Am I going to sell it right now? No. But if it gets to $50 or $60 an ounce, I will probably be cashing out quite a lot of that silver, putting it into my favorite metal of the lot, which is gold. And that is the stuff that I will hold for a very long time, for 30 years into my retirement, this stuff here very much is about preserving the buying power for what I want to do with my retirement, which is, to be quite frank, sit back in my late 50s preferably and do bugger all. I just want to have a nice retirement where I can relax, not have to worry about the stresses of work and money and life, and just enjoy what time we have on this earth. And that is the most important thing for anybody, I think, out there. And if we have this means to do that by preserving the money that we have in our life right now, which we're very fortunate to have, then that's the best thing that we can do for our own circumstance, our own situation. So when I see commentators or individuals posting things like, I've just sold my house and I want to buy $300,000 worth of gold or silver, where do I buy it? It's so difficult for me to sit back and go, that's probably the worst financial decision that anybody can make out there. Now, that's my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor. For people who want to go and do that, fine. You can just go and, make whatever financial commitments you want to do. But personally, for me, diversification, hedging against inflation, hedging against values of dollars, that's the most important thing. Not jumping all in on any asset, on any commodity, on any stock or share is critical. I've got a very good friend who I've mentioned a number of times without mentioning his name, but a very good friend of mine from school who we've been really connecting over this last couple of years with investments and money and talking all about this. And it's really interesting. His approach is very much less diversified than mine. He's very heavy into stocks and shares. And every time there are big swings in the markets like we've seen over this last couple of weeks, he's very forthright, and we're very forthright together with our own circumstances. And he's, lost a lot this last week, but he's gained a load more than I have as well. So his, aggressive stance on various different asset classes has, of course, paid off for him. But over the long term, it's going to be an interesting game to see where things are. Of course, I have a lot more metals than he does, and it's very interesting to see how it's going to play out in terms, it's not that it's a competition, but the different strategies there are important, but the volatility is also important to not forget. Silver is volatile, metals generally are fairly safe, but they are pretty volatile. Other commodities are a lot more volatile, of course, like oil, and copper, and all of these other commodities, industrial commodities, generally are a lot more volatile than gold and silver, which is why silver is generally more volatile than gold, because it's much more of an industrial metal. Now, the volatility as it relates to industry is an important factor in my mind anyway, because of course we're still reeling from the effects of the lockdowns of coronavirus and the restrictions on economies. As that improves over the rest of the year into 2022, as the vaccine rollout gets wider and wider and more coverage is achieved, assuming there are no major setbacks with new variants, industries around the world will start to reopen. We're already seeing talks of mines reopening to full capacity in Mexico, in Australia. That will then increase the supply on the market. And there's a lot of talk right now about silver squeezing and about the fact that we can squeeze the market. But I do firmly believe that when we see supply chains open up, when we see mines open up once again, when refineries are back to full capacity, that there will be an influx of silver on the market and gold. And I think that is, of course, going to have an impact on the value of those metals. Now, where the true value is going to come out, though, is, of course, the relationship between the value of the dollar and its relationship to other currencies, of course, but its relationship to where it sits within the world. Will this stuff fail? Will this become the laughingstock currency of the world? I know a lot of people out there currently think that it is, but it is still the currency that is the number one in the world. It's the Federal Reserve, it's the sort of world reserve currency, so to speak, out there at the moment. Don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I don't think the powers that be within the United States will let that change anytime soon. But what will happen, of course, is I still think this stuff will devalue over time. But as and when the economies really start kicking into overdrive and spending, started to be stimulated, is that right? If the stimulus spending happens and that improves growth in economies, if GDP goes up, that's going to, of course, strengthen the value of currencies as well. More sentiment will be favourable against those. We've seen hard times in history for different countries and currencies out there, and time has gone by, things have got better. So it's really difficult to know where things are going to go, and nobody really truly does. So if you see a thumbnail on a video saying silver will make you a millionaire or buying this much silver will make you rich, just remember that the vast majority of the time, silver is a stay rich quick scheme, not a get rich quick scheme. It is very much about preserving what you have right now. It's a bit of a dangerous time to be going all in on silver. It's great for those of us who've got silver that we bought at, you know, literally bought at like $14 an ounce, some of us, you know, then great. But for those who are buying now with high premiums, $45 an ounce for American Silver Eagles, I cannot see that being a worthwhile thing right now to do. I'd say if you are going to buy silver, buy it cheap, buy as cheap as you can, ignore the high premiums as best as you can on things like Eagles, and just try and buy what is right for you. Always have safety nets for cash as well. That's my final parting sentiment too. Don't go and mortgage your house. Don't go into debt to buy silver and gold. That's a recipe for disaster, and it might work for some people who might have other ways of bailing themselves out, but for the vast majority of us, if that happens, if there's a drop in the prices and you are absolutely up against it for bills, you're going to be forced to sell at an unopportune time, and that's going to cost. So that's my final parting thought. Dollar, very much weakening at the moment. We'll see where things go. Silver is still my favourite choice of metal to hold once you've got it, but it's not cheap to buy right now. It does sting a little to buy with such high premiums. So I tend now to go for gold, and I will be looking to purchase some more gold in the next couple of weeks, and it'd be interesting to think of what you guys might want me to buy. So any suggestions on what gold you want to see or want me to buy would be very interesting to hear. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed this video, put a thumbs up on it and share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful to everything that we do here on our channel. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you all for watching. We'll have a fantastic week ahead. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.